shit.
We'll call to order the February 8th, 2024 Danby Select Board meeting. If you would please rise. Join me in the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Abbott,
Here.
Powers,
Here.
Fuller,
Present.
Haines,
Here.
Bender.
Here. And who do we have visiting us remotely?
We have Annette Smith, Chris Hardaway, and Terry Parker, Doug White, Gary Durr, Sharon White, and someone on an iPhone.
Alrighty. Before we get going, I'd like to make two announcements. First of all, people may have noticed the portraits up on the wall behind me. It's both of their birthdays this month, as you know, or I hope you know. And these were found when we did the renovation of the building 2 years ago up in the attic. And there's a plaque on the back that the children who attended school here back in the 1930s raised the money to buy them. So I thought this would be an appropriate time to mention that. And also the town report is now available online, and you can view it there, danbyvermont.org. Beth, would you please read the procedure for remote access?
Procedure for remote attendance at select board meetings. Remote access to select board meetings, while not required by law, is offered in order to encourage access and participation for as many of our town's citizens as possible. It is understood that a select board meeting is a meeting open to the public, but not a public meeting per se. Business is conducted and votes are cast by board members. Therefore, public attendees, in person or remote, who wish to comment on an agenda action item when it is addressed in the course of the meeting, should indicate such intention during the public comment period at the beginning of the meeting. To maintain order as well as the efficiency of the meeting, the rules for remote attendee participation are: remote attendees will be muted by online host upon joining the meeting, remaining so unless recognized to speak. Intention or desire to speak in order to comment or ask questions will be indicated by use of the hand-raising function of the remote platform. People will be recognized in the order in which the hand-raising function is activated, and the online host will alert the chair to the presence of remote questions or comments. Remote participants, when recognized, will unmute their device and identify themselves with clearly spoken first and last name. Comment or question will be limited to 2 to 3 minutes, after which participant will be muted. This time limit will apply to in-person participants as well. General ground rules concerning decorum remains the same as that which is expected of citizens, guests, and board members attending in person. Namely, the speaker will not be interrupted and will not interrupt other speakers. The speaker will treat the proceedings and other speakers with dignity and respect, addressing the issue and not personalities. Procedures for use of the online platform and the above standards will be reviewed at the beginning of each meeting, which we've just done. And I'll also ask that if people are speaking from the gallery here, that you get close to that red microphone so the remote participants can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Sure.
In a moment, I'll entertain a motion to set the agenda, and that should include, under the road commissioner's report, where we are approving fleet permits, a fleet permit for Markowski Excavating.
I'll make the motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Public comment.
I don't have anything here.
Okay. Public comment is closed. Motion to adopt the minutes of the Select Board meeting of January 11th, 2024.
Make a motion, we adopt the minutes of the January meeting.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the January 11th, 2024 Select Board meeting minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Okay, next we have as a guest, two guests this evening from Rutland Regional Planning Commission, Devon Neary, and Greg, I didn't catch your last name.
Pelker.
Pelcher?
P-O-E-L-K-E-R.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for having us. Got a couple of handouts. We'll be going over this bright colored one first here. See that? Hold on to this and we'll see. How close do we need to be to that?
Well, it depends on how well you project your voice.
I can do it.
You're
Oh, good. Okay.
Why don't we, for ease, just pick that up and put it down on the end of the table by Andrea, and then
Okay.
you can stay comfortably in your seats.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, here we go. So we are first here to talk about the Rutland Regional Plan update. We're meeting with all 27 select boards in the Rutland region to raise awareness for this update that we're beginning now, and it will run through middle of 2026. This initial phase of the project is really our biggest push to get as much feedback from the communities as possible. We're calling it our Learn and Assess phase, and we're hosting a series of community workshops throughout the region. The closest one will be in Wallingford, and Michelle and Drea have volunteered as board reps to participate and volunteer at that meeting. Thank you for doing that. That's fantastic. We're also, what's that, sorry?
March 30th.
March 30th in Wallingford at the library. There's also several pop-ups that we're doing. We're sort of participating in local community events and tabling to get as much feedback from the community as we can. But the number one way in which we're really trying to seek feedback is through a public survey that's open now and runs through the end of March. That is the QR code on the second to last page, which you can also access through our regional plan website, rutlandrpc.org/plan 2026. So as of now, we have 450 responses to this survey. We're shooting for over 1,000. As of right now, there are 9 completed for the town of Danby. We'd love to see that number much, much higher. Our goal for Danby, based on equal representation throughout the county, is to at least hit 20 responses, but obviously we'd love much, much more than that. Like your town plan, the regional plan is updated every 8 years, and it's really an amalgam of sort of all the town's priorities. The regional, there's a lot of statutory requirements from the Regional Planning Commission to include in this plan, and the rest is really up to us as to what our vision for the future of Rutland looks like. And we think that there's no better people to help, really describe that future vision than you all. Select board members, residents, and everyone else in between in Rutland County. So that's really what we're asking and hoping from. There will be more opportunities in the future, but now is sort of the beginning stages to really paint that picture of the regional plan. So this outreach period is really going through the middle to end of April, and that'll cap that off, and we'll start drafting, and then there will be more additional outreach we'll be doing in the next 2 years as well. So we have, I believe, dropped off some postcards and flyers in the past at the town office to be, picked up by folks visiting. We would just ask if you all, through, your networks and community channels, to help us just spread the word. We're really hitting Front Porch Forum hard and Facebook and sending out newsletters and connecting with as many community-based organizations as we can. But the more, the better. So we will continue to give you guys updates as we're going through the drafting process. Ultimately, our board of commissioners are the ones that approve this plan, and the board, as you know, is made up by appointees from select boards. So we'll make sure that we have this process be as transparent as possible and really reflect those unique priorities from all of 27 towns. Do you guys have any questions on this? Many of you have probably gone through this before in the past, when we've done it in previous years.
On the writing or changing of the plan, Devon, you're taking the responses as your guys' plan and then bringing them to the board, meaning the collective board.
Yeah, so we have several different types of feedback that we're getting, and we have a regional plan committee that's made up of our board members. Those folks are directly reviewing not only drafts of the plan, but when we finish our first phase of outreach, they'll be helping to review that material too. Granted, not everything will make it in, right? It can't possibly, and there's obviously a lot of contradicting opinions out there, but we're gonna do as best as we can to incorporate those items, and those that don't, we're gonna make sure to have acknowledgements in the appendix of the plan as to like who said what, and address those as we go. So it'll be a mix of staff who are actually drafting the plan, and then the regional plan committee that are board members reviewing it. And I will say too, speaking to that previous plan, that was one that was last readopted in 2018, but it really hasn't seen a significant rewrite since really 2014 or even earlier. So with this plan, we are planning to throw that one out completely and start from scratch and rewrite an entire plan. So we see this as a huge opportunity to really, include, not that elements of that earlier regional plan weren't good, but they lacked a lot of specificity and a lot of actionable items. And that's what we're trying to do, is make this a much leaner plan that is readable and understandable by everybody.
We do have a question here from Annette Smith.
Former board member.
Hello, Devon. This is Annette Smith.
Hi, Annette.
I was Danby's commissioner for over a dozen years. So I wonder if you could speak to what I think is a new element that I think is quite relevant to Danby, and that's the Act 171, and it's a new requirement to add language about wildlife habitat and forest fragmentation. And I think it would be helpful if you could speak to that, because Danby is so forested and we have a lot of connectivity and forest habitat. So could you talk about how that's incorporated into this new regional plan, please?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great topic to bring up. Obviously, we're in the very early phases, so we don't even know how statutorily we're going to include those items, but obviously we're obligated to do so. And I think the huge opportunity with Act 171 is that it doesn't have to be a patchwork of individual towns, but rather we have an opportunity through the region to make those corridors regional. And I actually recently sat in a discussion with some folks from A&R who are doing a lot of this work, and it sounds like a big piece to this will be the mapping, which, as you know, Annette, is going to be a big part of our regional plan update, is updating the future land use map. And as a lot of you have heard, there's a lot of discussion in the legislature around updates to Act 250 and how regional land use maps may be part of that. I think Act 171 is similar in that we have this opportunity to, as a region, map these priority corridors for wildlife. So we don't have those specifics yet in that, but it's certainly on the radar to incorporate in this new plan through our natural resource chapter.
Thank you. I wanted to weigh in a little bit on the mapping. I was looking at the enhanced energy planning maps, you know, the Act 1, whatever, what's that one called, 174. I'm aware of a wildlife corridor that's not mapped. And so that's the sort of thing, will you be looking at local input to improve the mapping by getting the local people to point out areas on the maps that they're aware that there are corridors that aren't currently mapped?
Yeah, that would certainly be an important aspect of creating those maps and updating them. I know that will be the big opportunity with the future land use maps as well. So I think it can't be done in a vacuum, and it certainly can't be done by the RPC alone. So yeah, I think that's typically our strategy in these types of regional mapping projects, and I think we would, you know, continue with that methodology for this project as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Cool.
Well, you do a good job.
All right, well, we're going to switch gears and talk about municipal technical assistance. Brad, you probably remember when I was here talking to the Planning Commission that this was coming down the line, and it's good that it's actually here. Here we go, Trey. So Greg is here with me because we're both partnered in trying to provide this technical assistance to towns. And so depending on what you all decide, and hopefully that won't be tonight. This is really just to introduce this program. Either Greg or myself will sort of be your project manager through the process. So municipal technical assistance, what is it? It is a political program that was born out of the Budget Adjustment Act last year. And really what they found is all that state level ARPA dollars, like you guys got on the local level, has accumulated significantly and not being spent in our rural towns, especially in Essex and Rutland counties. So they did some quick analysis and found that there was a really inequitable distribution of those funds, and that just because the big buckets weren't fitting small towns well, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a piece of the pie as well. So through this program, the state needed a metric sort of to decide how do we prioritize these towns that need it the most. And this chart on the first page is what is known as the Vermont Community Index. And this really was an attempt at being objective in measuring a community's need and their capacity. And that created a sort of scoring system. So the top 25% greatest needs towns in our county were Ira, Benson, Mount Tabor, Timoth, West Haven, Paulet, in Middletown Springs. Those folks were part of the initial phase, and then most recently, over the past 6 months, they've opened it up to the next 25% of towns, in which Danby, as you can see, is part of that at 71.2%. Those numbers really are they're overall meaningless, right? The fact of the matter is now you are pre-approved, if you so choose, to participate in this program. What this program can do for you all is it provides funding to the RPC to help develop a project that you all think is important. And then if it, requires funding, we can identify and apply to a grant source and then manage the project from soup to nuts. The original sort of eligibility criteria for what projects were, eligible to all the towns pre-approved are on this bottom list. It was pretty narrow. water, wastewater, housing, community recovery, climate change, and economic development. Narrow, but the categories were pretty broad. Since this was first developed, everything's been opened up considerably. So now we're being told from, the folks running the program and assisting us that really we should be working with you and taking any and all opportunity and then sort of seeking a no answer from agency administration. They're ultimately who will say yay or nay on whether your project would be eligible. So beyond the sort of distinct project that this could help fund or identify or scope, there are so many other opportunities now that it's almost hard to describe like what are the opportunities for you all. So some towns are using this to update their town plan. Some towns are using this to scope some new building or do a feasibility study or do something with recreation. There's so many options. Some towns are doing a salt and sand shed or a culvert. The sky's the sort of limit as long as we can sort of identify something specific. Overall, there's no cost to the town for this project. The money is set aside. It's up to the select board whether or not you want to sort of accept or waive the program. And we don't have to decide tonight at all. We're really here to say, hey, this is an opportunity for you all. If you're interested, we can start to sort of like talk about what projects you might want to pursue, and then we can run them by the agency to make sure that this is something possible. Other towns in the region, what are they thinking about? So Benson is considering using theirs for restoring their village store, which many of you know might have it burnt down several years ago, or to build a pavilion in their recreation area near their town hall. Mount Tabor, just across the way, is really interested in doing something with housing or some business support for a potential new business coming in. Timoth is actually looking at solar, a town-owned solar array, or a culvert replacement. Pollitt is looking at wastewater. Timoth is actually doing community needs assessment. Middletown is doing solar. So as you can see, there's a big range of what folks are deciding to use this for. So we're really here to say, what questions do you have and what ideas do you have? Just like, what are those priorities right at the front of the mind that might be like a really good fit for something like this?
Before we go there, I wonder if you could just give me the definition of capacity as it's used here.
Yes, there's actually a really complicated formula that has a back end to it that I don't have in front of me right now. It's essentially an Excel spreadsheet where they took all these metrics from either census data, grand list data, town, the number of like municipal employees and the town budget. So there's a bunch of the data sets that the state used to sort of come up with this capacity score. We didn't have anything to do with it. So I can't speak to every granular detail to that. I think they used a lot of different metrics.
Okay.
And I can send you that spreadsheet if you are interested to see what the categories are.
I'm just trying to get a handle on that.
Is it going to be the same metrics if we ask need and index that they all are more complicated than a 2-minute answer?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Could we get a copy of how this was done just for our...
Absolutely. Yeah, I can email you guys a copy of this.
And does that affect anything to do with, other than these are just numbers, and it still doesn't affect if we come up with a project that we're a 71 as opposed to a 97? Or
correct. This is just to get you into the door. Once you're in, there's really nothing else that this is applicable to. So it will really ultimately depend on what project path you take or not a project, and if those particular grant funding sources have specific criteria. So same with like a match, we can't determine what the match is until we go after a specific program.
Do they tend to be mostly matching or some outright?
This is literally anything that we could think of. Originally it was really narrow to those federal ARPA programs, but now it could be a normal state grant. So that could be 80-20, it could be 50-50, it could be 100. That's the other thing with this program, depending on what you all pursue, we could really push the ticket on, could we request additional funding to be a grant match? Could we request additional funding to support an engineer coming in and doing some work? So there are some flexible options there, but they would really have to be tailored to whatever your need is,
I'm a little confused on it, and I think you did a great job of explaining
It's
it.
a confusing program. You're not alone. We've had to do this several times over, and it's like, yeah.
And I just want to make sure everyone listening and everybody here that it's grant. Every bit of it is grant or for planning, grant for doing. I'm really having trouble following.
Does it just stop at planning or?
No. So if you turn this page over, actually we'll show you like what our initial scope of activities and work are for something like this. Not that we have to perform every task, because you might skip over task 1. You know what you need. You don't need a needs assessment. Whereas right now, Greg is working with the town of Timoth on actually performing a community needs assessment. They're doing a big survey and figuring out what direction to go. So what this is really going to look to support, and again, I don't want to sort of like box this in because there is flexibility and we can get creative. But ultimately, let's say you want to replace, let's just pick a culvert to be easy. The culvert has some connection to like repeat storm damage from some of the flooding that's been going on. We have a connection to, potential climate resilience. We asked AOA, hey, is this an eligible project? They say yes. From there, we get with you guys. We ask them for additional funding to maybe do some engineering work. The engineering work gets done, they create an estimate. We then would take that estimate, build out an application for funding, apply to a potential funding source. Let's say we receive it. From that point, we could then manage those funds and that project for you, because as you guys know, just getting grant funds isn't enough. To manage them is a huge deal sometimes, especially if there's federal strings attached. So all that, through the end of the project, would be covered at no cost to the town. All of that sort of planning and management work.
You guys have the potential to manage that much once all the towns get on board? That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It will be a lot of work, but we will not shy away from it. And if we have to build capacity to meet the demand, we certainly will. We are staffed up currently with 12 planners, so we're confident we can do it. But it really will depend on the project, right? So we are here to support whatever that vision is.
Yeah, no, because I was thinking in the big thing, every town jumps on that you're offering it to, and the amount of work that you are
and there is
offering.
And there is a time limit to this stuff. Like all ARPA dollars, they're basically saying to us now that by the end of spring, late April, May, maybe even beginning of June, they'd like to have a defined project.
In the payout still end of 26, is it? Everything's got to be complete? Or
That's not totally well known with this program yet, but yes, ultimately our funding would run out, so we'd try to develop this project in the next 2 years. Let's say we get grant funding, though, that's outside of this program. That's not going to be stuck within the confines of 2026. That could go well beyond.
what other avenues are you, because I guess I was under the understanding we were looking at more or less ARPA money for that?
That's originally what it was intended to do, but now it could be even a state program or a regional program, or like Northern Borders Regional Commission just released a Catalyst grant program. It could be something like that.
So Lynn Bondurant was asking the same question that came to my mind as well. Might this be an opportunity to get the complete hydrology study and research done for the cause and fix for the water problems in downtown home basements? Maybe an opportunity to speak with Mount Tabor again about the issue. Because I think we ditched it because we couldn't get Mount Tabor buy-in.
Right.
But that's an issue in this town that really needs to be addressed, and it seems like it fits right into that pocket.
So this is routine flooding in the village center?
Ever since Irene, when the Otter Creek filled in, there's been a problem with Brooklyn Road in Mount Tabor and the easternmost sections of Mount Tabor Avenue and Depot Street in Danby.
Okay. So I can tell you that Mount Tabor received a FEMA brick grant to do a study of the same part of the rivershed behind Brooklyn Road. So I'm wondering, is there, that's already...
Well, it might need to be expanded, but it'd be great if it was put into the same, because if one hand doesn't know what the other's doing, we may duplicate or not work together.
Yeah.
And it's really a multi-community problem that if we could get both towns to work at the same direction, it would be great. Yeah.
And Annette's got her hand raised here too.
Just one follow-up question quick. Has that been a capacity issue or more of a political issue with sort of working with Mount Tabor in the past on this stuff?
No, I
It was
wouldn't.
more of a capacity issue.
Yeah.
They didn't want to.
And one of the presentations I went to probably 4 or 5 years ago already, I was point blankly told that this is a far bigger issue and you're going to have to get the Army Corps of Engineers involved. And
I'm sure that's
good
still
luck, it
very
won't
true.
happen in your lifetime, Brad Bender.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, this may be your lucky day.
you ready for Annette?
Yeah.
Annette?
Yes, I had that same idea, and Devon, Brad did work with an engineering firm in New Hampshire, and did, I think, got a quote, and then went to Mount Tabor, and they said they weren't interested. So there has been some groundwork laid. But what I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned town plans. Danby, I believe, is on its cycle to do a town plan update. So how does this fit in with what we would normally do, which is to apply for a grant, the competitive planning grant, and if Danby were to choose to use these funds for that, would it mean we couldn't use them for something else? Would we still be wanting to apply for that grant so that we could hire the Regional Planning Commission to do the town plan update with us?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, we're finding that municipal planning grants for just routine updates of town plans are not getting funded, which has caused a lot of town planning commissions to attempt to do their own town plan updates, which doesn't always work well. You're all our volunteers, you know how it goes. It's a huge lift. So we haven't, Annette, been banking on those MPG funds. Where they are funding town plan updates is if there's some modernization uniqueness to it, whether it's like focusing on climate change or housing, affordable housing especially, or economic development. There's got to be something unique about the update to the town plan. So we haven't seen a lot of towns be funded without those elements. So I would say to the town, you know, we are actually in the midst of developing a whole new town planning process and program to try to meet this need without, you know, causing all this cost to the town or relying on these unreliable grant sources. So if the town went this route with using these funds to update the town plan, it would work essentially exactly as the MPG funds. It would be used to subsidize Regional Planning Commission time to help you write the plan. It's pretty simple that way. There's only a few towns that I think have gone that route in this program. Who was Benson was actually the other town that is mentioned it and considered it because they're on a similar replacement schedule or update schedule as you all. So yeah, I mean, we're never going to leave the town high and dry on writing a town plan, but I'm not convinced the funding will be there from the MPG program.
So if Danby were to choose to use this money for Regional Planning Commission assistance in updating the town plan, would that mean that it could use money for, say, the downtown water issue? I mean, how much is there to spread around?
It's less about how much there is and more about they're really only allowing towns to pick one project.
One project, okay, that's very helpful.
Yep.
Well, I will note that the assistance of the Regional Planning Commission in the town plan update is really great and appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, and we want to be there to help you guys.
Well, it just sounds like this opportunity could potentially fund a very large project that we wouldn't be able to do on our own without it. So I think if we were to come up with something, finding something larger would be more beneficial than spending the money on the town plan update where we already have resources to pull in for that.
Yep, that's solid thought process too. I mean, ultimately what we're most interested in is making sure it's something that you all value and you really rally behind. We're just here to help be a sounding board and, you know, coordinate with AOA and do research if needed. You know, there's a lot we can do before we actually have to select a project. So don't have to make a decision tonight. What we'd like to do is have you guys really think about it. Please, you know, feel free to reach out if you want to sort of centralize your comments to be efficient through Brad. That's great. If you want to reach out to us directly, that's fine too. Whatever process makes sense to you all. What we've typically been doing with towns is saying, for efficiency's sake, you know, if there are discussions or thoughts or sort of brainstorming between public meetings, that's
Done before.
get them done. And that way we're not only talking about this, you know, every meeting. Ultimately, when you do decide to select a single project, that is done in open meeting and it's known as a statement of work. You all have to vote on it and sign it. It's not like a contract by any means, but it basically authorizes us to move forward once approved by AOA. The only thing that you would have to do in the interim, and it again doesn't have to happen tonight, is in public meeting, y'all need to vote to decide whether to accept or waive the program. I would encourage you, if you're on the fence, don't make a decision. If you know for sure this is what you want, we've had several towns say right there in the first meeting, yeah, we're going to move forward with it. It does not commit you either. If you say, yeah, we're going to move forward with it, we get 2 or 3 months down the road and you're like, no, that's okay. We can bail on it. But we'll at least give it, you know, the college try. I know that's a lot.
Well,
it's a big down.
What I'm thinking is is going to involve a lot of research into what the project would cost.
Mhm.
And there's kind of 2 projects that I can think of, both very worthy. So that becomes, can I have 2 jelly beans?
Yeah. Probably not in this case, but maybe one will suffice, right? So I guess let us know. Do you have any other questions? We don't want to take up your whole meeting time here tonight either.
What?
No, it was quite informative and almost overwhelming.
I know, I get it. I'm sorry. I hope
Just because it's so open-ended.
it is. Yeah. But I do, you know, what we've been saying to all the towns, I don't know if we'll see an opportunity like this again. You know, this was really part of that bigger swath of funding.
Oh, my other question was, unused ARPA money, can that be put with this?
If the town has local unused ARPA funds, I don't see why not at all. It's unrestricted that way. But I would say potentially save that money if there were a grant match. That could
Another
be,
jelly bean.
yeah, it could be very useful.
Right.
Very useful. So
Is there a number value kind of limit to this?
He said the sky's the limit. I'm going with that.
So there is a number limit. Where the standard allocation to us is sort of $7,500 per town, but we can always request more. They're saying like the upper limit, and I think this is not reasonable at all, is 100,000. I don't think they're going to dole that out to any old town or any town period. So I would say let's use what we have, and then if there's additional requests for like consultant work or whatever it might be, that would be the time to make the additional funding request.
And
Just
that-
to clarify, did you say 7,500 or 75,000?
7,500.
7,500 is a MTAP money. That's one pot of money, and that's meant for the RPC to use to apply for other grant programs. So that's
It's not limited at just that. You know what I mean? Like, you're absolutely right. It can be leveraged into much, much more, potentially. Yeah.
So it's like the base fund to start.
Right. Right. All right. Thank you all. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming down. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Flavors of Kids Vermont campaign presentation by Will Rear.
Hi. Move a little closer to the mic. Okay. Alrighty, so thank you for having me back. It's always good to be up here. So I'll give you some updates about what has happened in the past month, just so you're aware. So the House Health and Human Services Committee about 2 weeks ago voted to approve the draft bill that's currently in the House. I think it's 144, but anyway, the S18 bill that moved over to the House and is now being worked on there. They did include amendments, which I'll detail in just a second, but it did pass 10-1, so there is pretty strong support in the House, and that was considering we didn't know how a lot of people were going to vote, but then after they voted, they explained why they did it that way, and it was very comfortable. Thank you. And then tomorrow morning, this was pretty unexpected, but the Ways and Means Committee in the House is going to vote on it and really fine-tune the financial aspect of the bill and kind of what's going to happen to the revenue component. So detailing what happened in Health and Human Services, there are a few exemptions that, of course, you're not going to get everything you want, not all your jelly beans, right? But there's some that we're fine with and can rest with. There's just one, and I'll detail why we're a little concerned about it. But they made certain exemptions for kinds of cigars that are flavored, mainly because that is dedicated more to older populations. So we can rest with that. They kept menthol in, which was good. That was something they were originally trying to take out. We really told them that was the highest substitution rate of any product with flavored tobacco. So when they were considering that, we were a little concerned. And one thing that we were actually happy that they did and were able to work with businesses in the labor community on was giving more of a grace period for businesses that would be selling it past the date of it being enacted. So there's a little more leniency with that, and the forget which department's going to be in charge of going over that. Maybe liquor control, I forget. But they'll be monitoring that and making sure businesses are okay. The big worry we have right now is that there's an exemption for these things called cigarillos. I have never heard of them until it was brought up in this committee. But they have a high substitution rate among youth because they're packaged and marketed just like candy, pretty much. So that's the only concerning exemption they made. We're currently working on it with members of the House to try and get it to go to conference and hopefully reconcile that. But I'm happy to take any questions that you have about the sign-on that I sent you. I just wanted you guys to have the full transparency with how the bill's changed just a little bit and where we stand on that. And it sounds like in general with the House and the legislature, we're having good feedback and reception. Yeah. Any concerns?
I guess my one question, and we were discussing it the other day, is it's a great cause you're doing. Who's actually funding you guys? Because there's hundreds of you,
Yeah.
working right now, which is a substantial, I don't think you work for free, right?
No, we don't. No. I get paid. I wouldn't be here at 7 o'clock at night if I didn't get paid. But that is a good question. So I get paid through the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. That's our national parent organization. So we're not allowed actually to do any fundraising. That's why I've gone to towns and they're like, well, how much are you requesting? I'm like zero. I can't ask for money. So the only people we get it from are the ones in DC. And just full transparency, they have, hundreds of workers around the United States, and I believe they bring in, on average annually, around 26 million. But again, when you disperse that out for all the things they're paying for all of us, it gets dwindled pretty fast. But yeah, I don't know exactly where all the revenue funding comes from, but most of it's from tobacco prevention organizations and donors, I would assume. I haven't really gotten that in depth with the finances on that, but I can pass along any FEC filings if that would help.
No, it was just one of them questions that it was a lot of people working all at once really quickly, so you were well organized in like a small startup wouldn't
yeah, I was going to say, now we're a small team in Vermont and we don't get a lot from that big pot. I want to emphasize that. They're not dumping in money. The ratio between the people with the tobacco industry that are from Marlboro and all the big cigarette companies, I mean, we're getting, I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but I would go as far to say like 10 to 1 probably right now. I would say 5 to 1 would be a reasonable guess. Yeah. Any more questions?
Well, that was quick and easy.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it was, I think presentation might have been a little bit of an exaggeration. I guess more of an update, and then just also, making sure that you guys felt comfortable with signing on. We had our legislative breakfast last week. I should have included that as well, where we got lawmakers and constituents all around the state to come. We had a lot of Southern Vermonters come up, which was really, really good to have them drive up all that way, because I know it's a lot to get up to Montpelier. But we had a good reception there, and we had all the organization logos and names kind of mentioned, and we talked about how they felt and all of that. So it was a great event. So it would have been nice to have Danby with us in that moment, but you guys can be there again.
So what are you actually looking for from us? When you
I thought did I send the sign on to you guys? Oh,
I don't believe so.
Oh goodness. Okay, maybe that's a little. So
you were going to send it to the town clerk.
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't.
Do we know if the town clerk received it?
If the town clerk received it, it was not in my agenda folder.
That's okay. I'll send that to you guys, and we can move it to another date when you guys feel comfortable. But I just wanted to provide that little update for you guys, so thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to keep dragging you back. I mean,
no, I love coming to Danby. What are you talking about? But no, I mean, I don't necessarily have to come back again, but I can send you guys the information to your email addresses, and I'll check and make sure I sent it. It could have been an error on my part, because as you guys know, I'm sending it to a lot of organizations all the time, so it may have gotten slipped up, and my apologies if that was the case, and for adding more time to this meeting. But yeah.
Okay. Does it need to say attention select board, or have your name on it?
Typically Janice puts everything through.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
And we apologize if it got lost. I mean,
no, that's fine. Things happen.
You have a better chance with email. Well, no. Still waiting for US mail to bring some things. However, thank you for that, Will. So the treasurer's report, our treasurer is involved with a concert that her daughter's participating in this evening, so she is not with us. But we do have a report from her, and she's telling us that the auditors completed their work for December. The Brock loan statements were sent out on the 5th of February, and no payments have been received, I believe, since the first of the year. She would like to see us add fraud protection to bank accounts. And that information is laid out for you. I would rather not discuss the details of that publicly. Obviously, it's just like, I'm not going to tell you my PIN number. So, in a nutshell, there are two different programs. One is a little more inclusive than the other, and of course it costs more money. So Jennifer is looking for direction from us on that.
Are you looking for us to make some sort of motion?
I am.
Okay, she's got them, we got two different columns for money.
Correct.
So that's the two.
So do you want column A or column B or none of the above?
Okay, so. What line item would this come out of?
Well, that is a very good question. She did say we could text her and she would answer a question. So if somebody has her phone number handy.
Well, I just want to make sure we have all our questions
Okay.
that we want to. I mean, can we not put this off until next month where we can have an actual discussion? I mean, is the world going to change if we?
Well, one never knows when something's going to go screwy with a scam.
I would think if we did the first one, it does give us a protection.
That was pretty much my
I
idea.
think we would be fine with that.
Yeah.
We could always change it and up it later, but it would get the ball rolling so we are protected.
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion, we go with the first one.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
Do you want
second
me to
it.
say motion to go with option A?
Yes, for $80 a month.
Okay.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Discussion on it? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And I didn't hear,
Who seconded that?
Steve. And it sounded like everybody was in unanimous agreement. So, I will tell her to go forth with that. And that was pretty much it, unless you had any questions on, the report for January. Okay, so next we move on to the road commissioner's report, and can tell us about all the good stuff that's been happening, and we have some fleet permits to adopt.
All right, we're into grant writing season right now, so we our structures grant and our class 2 paving grant, we're going to get submitted probably in the next week. I'll have it done. Steve and the crew have been back on your brush at all, Steve, or you just beating your head against the wall with the snow and the mud?
Snow, mud, and moving the sand pile back down here.
Oh yeah. Did you get that done? I haven't even looked.
We got as much as we're comfortable having back in the yard and dealing with the dump.
Okay.
And we sent Larry to Pollitt for 2 days to help them repair a couple of their roads as a grader operator.
And I sent Paula a bill for $200 an hour.
Perfect. I'm sure they'll pay that right away.
Yeah, I guess on to the road grant. I I don't want to say either way if we're expecting a road grant this year. Last year Parish Hill was our road grant. But I plan on writing it for the Timoth Road this year, because I did want to complete the Pollock Road, but I think we can shim a couple spots there, but I'd like to really get the Timoth Road done, if anyone's interested, where we're trying to get for pavement areas done, which would be from basically Doug White's farm down to the Timoth line. Yeah, other than that is we're hopefully get some more brush cutting done. Well, the weather's good if the weather holds out and we don't have to do snow every day. Is there anything else, Steve?
No, other than truck repairs that we've been doing.
New truck's running good.
New truck is running like a dream. Made it all the way from Vermont to New Hampshire and is waiting for a body.
So it will be good in 2025.
Well, half of it by the sound.
Half of it's arrived. Well, all of it's arrived. It's just sitting in pieces in New Hampshire.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought the body and the plow were
The
there.
body had been there for months.
With the plow, just
Yep.
waiting.
Not getting spattered
Not
with
putting
snow.
any cutting edges on it then.
They got an awful yard full of trucks sitting over there waiting for bodies.
Yep, they do.
Annette
But-
says, please thank them for putting gravel on Tinmouth Pond and Baker Brook Road.
Not a problem. We've put a lot of gravel out this week.
Yeah, that's all we got for the month.
All
If you want to
right.
go on to fleet permits.
So then, I'll entertain a motion to approve fleet permits for Newport Sand and Gravel / Carroll Concrete Company Incorporated and Markowski Excavating.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carried. As far as old business is concerned, I will just remind everyone that the dog ordinance did not meet with any opposition. The deadline for filing a petition against that was January 27th. And that has come and gone and no petition was presented, so that will take full force and effect on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. And a copy of it has been sent to the Sheriff's Department. So if there is any kind of dog complaint after February 14th, anybody can call the sheriff and the sheriff will respond to that. Is there any other old business? Any new business?
Taj?
Well, then I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
And it's seconded. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
And we are now adjourned.